Good afternoon. During the declared emergency by the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the City of Toronto Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements in a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Any registered participants will be participating by audio only. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the lands we're meeting on here today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is also now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is now called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permissions to extend or lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone who wishes to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the committee decision here today, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT. Appeal instructions are set out in the bottom of the decision of the committee. So how we're going to proceed today with the hearing procedure is I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. In the non-hearing context, normally we vet the agenda to determine which applications are opposed and require a more in-depth review and which applications can proceed. But in the virtual world, we're just going to be proceeding in order. In this case, applications 11 through 20 in order. When your application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation if required. What I'm going to do this afternoon is, as I believe all of the applications are unopposed, I will just ask committee members at the outset whether they feel they need a presentation from the applicant or agent, or whether we can go straight to the question asking and making a decision stages. So each speaker, including the agent, if we require a presentation, will be given a maximum 5 minutes to address the committee. Mr. Kumaric, who is manning the time clock, will advise you when you're coming up to the 5 minute to give you a warning. When addressing the committee, please state clearly your name and address for the record. Please remember also to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent on application is opposed. We don't have any, so normally the objecting party or the party in concern would go after the applicant, and then the applicant would have an answer to rebut any of the issues and respond to any questions asked by the neighbor, but we don't have any neighbors this afternoon. So please note, though, the committee will not be able to entertain any revisions to the applications at the hearing today. The committee does decide to defer an application if substantially revised to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentations, and then when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity, when they're neighbors in opposition, to rebut those issues and respond to questions raised by the neighbors. At that time, there's the end of discussion. Committee members We may have some follow-up questions for the applicant. You'll hear a motion and a decision being made on your application. Some housekeeping matters. Any declarations of interest of panel or staff on the matters before us this afternoon's agenda? No conflicts? Okay. And we have some files to be closed, but we will handle that at the end of the public portion of the meeting. Okay, so just getting our first application is item number 11, 31 Lacey Avenue, and it's for a detached dwelling with a attached garage. Oh, sorry, my mistake. 22 Kingdom. Oh, I'm reading the address of the agent. That's what screwed me up. Okay. It's 22 Kingdom. It's a detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 7 variances. And perhaps we can just see if who we have registered. We have registered to speak on this matter, Michaela Silva, the agent for the applicant. Ms. Silva, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. So, Ms. Silva, perhaps I see there's quite a number of variances on this new build. Perhaps you can give us a brief presentation.
Okay. So good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is, again, Michaela Silva, and I am the applicant and designer for this application. So this application was originally deferred on January 30th of 2020 to be able to consult with planning after they expressed some concerns with the variances. So basically, this is, we're proposing a new detached 2-story dwelling with 2-car integral garages. Originally, we had 8 variances on the application, but we've reduced that down to 7 variances after speaking with planning. Now, if I may, I will go over the variances that were modified.
Yeah, before you do that, Ms. Silva, I just want to point out I didn't quite go through what we have before us. We have the minutes from the previous meeting, when it was adjourned. We have a covering letter, plans. There is a planning report, and also forestry is requesting their condition number 4. But I don't know if you've seen the planning report. The planning report dated January 22nd. I don't know if that was changed, if you changed your application. At that time, they were asking that the committee either refuse the application or defer it in order to
That's
give you
correct.
an opportunity to modify it to be more in keeping. So did that already happen? You've made
Yes, it did.
modifications?
Yes, we have made modifications, and that's, I'm assuming, why they have not written another report, because everything seems okay with them.
Okay.
Can we get a
would you
brief
like me
Do
to?
we have a second report?
Mhm.
Madam Secretary Treasurer,
Mhm.
is there a second report?
No, we do not have
Yeah,
enough.
so all I have is the report, and it did mention that, when they give the report, they summarize what's before us. So in this case, at the time of the report, there were 8 variances, I note.
Mhm.
And the big one, which they always, one in particular, is the floor space index. You were seeking 0.73, where 0.6 is permitted. Was that the same in your, has that changed from what you now have before us? I'm just trying to open the.
No, it has not changed.
It hasn't changed. So
It's
what did you change after getting that letter in January?
Yeah, so I speak to Tony Liu. He's the planner. So variance number 2 was changed,
Yes.
where the front setback was originally proposed to be 6-meter setback, and we changed that to 7. The other variance that was modified was variance number 5, which had to do with the height of building, where we proposed 9.5 meters, and we reduced that down to 8.6 meters.
Just to clarify on that variance, variance 5 should reference a flat roof dwelling, not a peaked roof dwelling. So we will fix that for the minutes and the decision.
That's correct. Okay, and variance number 7, the originally proposed platform projected 4.27 meters, and we modify that to 3.05 meters. And variance number 8 was completely eliminated.
Okay. So 8 was eliminated. Variance 1 did not change.
No, did not change.
Okay, so what, sorry, can you just repeat again what changed?
Yeah, of course. Variance number 2 changed.
Okay,
Okay, where the proposed front yard setback was originally 6 meters, but we reduced that to 7 meters. So actually, we increased it to 7 meters.
yes,
So we pushed the house back, right? We pushed the house back as per the planning's request.
okay,
Then the variance number 3 remains the same. Variance number 4 remains the same. Variance number 5 was modified from a proposed height of 9.5 meters to 8.6 meters at the
okay.
height of building.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, variance number 7, the platform, which is the deck at the back, originally projected 4.27 meters, but then we reduced that to 3.05 meters.
Okay,
Yeah. So those were the variances that were modified. And after speaking to Tony, everything else seemed that they were okay with the rest of the proposal.
right. And they pointed out in their email or their memo from January that they've identified concerns with the front yard setback of 6 meters, the side yard setbacks of 0.92, the requested flat roof of 9.5, and the requested platform, which you've now eliminated.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, committee members, any follow-up questions for the agent? And you're aware of the forestry memo as well?
Yes, I am. Yeah, we have no intentions on removing the tree. There might be maybe an injury because of the driveway is now going to be widened for the 2-car garage, but the tree is to remain.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So committee members, any questions for the applicant?
So there's no private trees in the back?
Let me see. There are, but they're small. They're 0.1 10 centimeters in diameter only, so they don't apply.
Okay.
Okay.
Forestry is only requesting condition 1, not condition 2? 1 and 3?
1 and 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the old one. It is only condition 1.
There's only 1.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had various notes on that. Okay.
Okay. Does anyone have any further questions or comments, or are we ready for a motion?
I've got a question. I'm just trying to ascertain whether the variances requested, as set out in the notice, are aligned with the memo dated February 12th that does refer to a number of changes.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay, so for instance, number 1, maximum FSI is 0.6, you're proposing 0.73. Oh, there, no changes were made to that. And number two, the minimum required front yard, 7.62, proposed dwelling will be 6. The variance was modified to 7. Okay, just let me quickly pull up the actual notice. I just want to confirm in my own mind that it says 7, which it does. Okay.
Okay. Okay, any questions, or is someone ready to make a motion?
Yeah, without benefit of an updated planning staff memo, I'm just going to make a presumption that the issues planning staff had identified have at least been addressed in part, or perhaps fully. Again, we don't know. I conclude the variances are reasonable, minor. The 4 tests under the Planning Act are met, and I move approval subject to, I think it's urban forestry condition 1 in their most current memo. Yeah. That would be my motion. Approval subject to urban forestry condition 1, which I think was set out in their June 8th memo.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Mr. Palmer, thank you. All in favor by show of hands? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next application is item number 12, 600 Dixon Road. And this is an application to construct an 11-story building in the rear of the lot that would be adjoining to the existing 5-story building at the front of the lot, which is the Holiday Inn. And we have on this application previous decisions with respect to the property, a covering letter dated March the 4th and May 13th. We have supporting materials regarding bike parking and engineering comments and Hydro One. We have a lot of material on this application. So perhaps, Mr. Dalton, if you're with us, perhaps you can give us a short presentation.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. We've been assisting the owner with their site plan approval as well as the minor variance application.
You, Mr. Dalton, are you on speaker or something? We're having trouble. You're coming in. Sounds like you're calling from inside a tunnel or something.
Oh, hang on.
Okay, try again.
that
We also
better?
have a letter from planning and an email saying that they're fine with going ahead. And with
Yes.
transportation and a letter from the counselor as well.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, a little bit. That's better.
Okay,
What
good.
you did.
Okay. It takes a bit of tweaking, sorry. We've been assisting the owner with their site plan approval as well as the minor variance application that's before the committee this afternoon to provide for a proposed 11-story addition at the rear of the existing Holiday Inn on site. By way of background, the existing hotel currently contains 192 hotel suites, a conference facility, a Perkins restaurant, a small car rental agency, and in total has a GFA of 10,974 square meters, or 118,124 square feet if you think in imperial, and an FSI of 0.57. As can be seen from the drawings submitted, the site has a trapezoid-like shape. Its eastern boundary abuts lands that are
Could you,
owned by
Mr. Dalton, could you just try to slow down a bit? You're like, try to speak a
Oh,
little.
sorry.
But, don't read from we've read all the extensive reports, but just give us a little summary of, and I see we have the counselor in support and planning in support, so.
You do. So the IO lands have been used, which are to the east of the site for the past 60 years and will continue well into the future to contain above and below grade utilities on it. As per the information we have submitted to the committee, IO supports the proposed hotel expansion, and the IO lands have been leased to Hydro One for the past 30 plus years. And in turn, Hydro One has leased these lands to the Holiday Inn for the past 30 plus years, as they've used this parcel for its overflow parking if and when required. Generally, the site is surrounded by a range of service, commercial, and employment uses. To the west of the site is a park and fly economy lot, the Toronto Congress Centre, as well as several hotels ranging in height between 5 and 17 stories, including the 17-story Doubletree, the 16-story Radisson, the 12-story Crown Plaza, and the 11-story Delta. Recently, the Crown Plaza and the Delta Hotel successfully secured variances from the Etobicoke York Committee of Adjustment to provide for additions to their existing facilities, consisting of an 8-story addition to the 12-story Crown Plaza and an 11-story addition to the 7-story Delta. And these additions involve similar variances for on-site parking reduction and reduced setback as our client is requesting today for its expansion. The site is located approximately 3.5 kilometers from Pearson International Airport, which received about 50 million visitors in 2019. The city has identified the area surrounding the site as one of the largest and fastest growing employment areas in the city. In order to keep up with the demands of this area and improve its operation, the owner would like to maintain the existing hotel by adding the proposed 11-story or 41.01 meter tall addition to the rear of the existing structure. The expanded hotel will then contain 385 hotel suites, that being 192 in the existing, 193 in the new building, office space on floors 2 to 4 inclusive of the new building, a cafe on the ground floor of the new building, while maintaining the existing conference facility and Perkins restaurant. The expanded hotel will have a proposed GFA of 29,915 square meters, or 322,002 square feet, if you think an imperial, and have an FSI of 1.56 versus the 1.5 permitted. In addition, the site will contain 442 on-site parking spaces that will be comprised of 147 surface plus 295 spaces in the proposed two-level underground garage in the new building versus the 546 spaces required on site by the bylaw. So, to provide for the proposed rear addition, variances to the following category of the bylaw are required. First, slight increase to permitted FSI.
Yeah, sir,
restaurant-
Mr. Dalton, I don't think committee members, you want Mr. Dalton to have to go through all the variances, or
Okay,
you're fine with that? Okay.
okay. If you
So
want me to, I
let's
can.
just, thanks for that presentation. We've read all your material, so let's just see if committee members have any follow-up questions from that with respect to
Okay.
what you propose. I see that planning is no problems, and you do have a letter of support from Councillor Ford.
That's right.
Okay. Mr. Palmer has a question for you.
Okay, yeah, a question just regarding the lease for the parking. How long is the lease for?
The current lease expires in January 2021, and negotiations between Holiday Inn and Hydro are currently underway, so it'll be renewed.
Okay, so one of the variances is for the reduced amount of parking. What if you don't get that lease? What are you going to do with the additional parking that's required?
Our client has told us that the discussions are progressing very well, and there'd be no issue why the lease wouldn't be renewed. They've been leasing those lands now for more than 35, 36 years.
I guess the answer would be if for some reason it doesn't go through, you'd have to come back for a further variance.
No, they wouldn't, because the variance they're asking
No, we
for
wouldn't,
now,
because
the variance they're asking
we're
for
asking-
now
When
does
it-
not require them to get that additional parking. So if we grant them the variance,
I see.
doesn't matter if they get that parking or not.
yeah, because variance 8 is for the 442 versus the 546 parking spaces on site.
If
So
they
once
get,
we get that,
if they get the additional parking, they wouldn't need a variance, but because they don't own the land.
No, that's not
the
true.
lease spaces, the lease
The-
spaces are over and above the 442.
If they get a variance, but there is a condition from Transportation Services for the off-site parking.
That's where I was gonna go.
If you put that in as a condition, what happens if that lease ends? Are they in contravention to their decision at that point?
I guess they would.
Well,
Sorry, so-
what if the condition that we put in requires off-site parking, but not necessarily from Hydro? There's other locations that have parking supply in that area.
Exactly. In the highly unlikely event that it didn't go through, the renewal of the existing lease, I mean, there's ample parking around.
Fair enough, but we
Yeah.
can't deal with likely or not likely. We got to deal with certainty. So all I'm saying is
Right.
if we impose that condition, then the condition will be not specific to the Hydro land. It'll be specific to some other piece of adjoining parking. Are you okay with that?
Yep, that's fine.
And I'm,
Okay, well, what's the other mechanism? There's a building permit that's required, obviously. Is there site plan approval, something under
Yes.
the Planning Act that's further required?
Yes. We're on the verge of getting our notice of approval conditions.
Sorry, you're on the verge of getting approval for what?
We're on the verge of receiving our notice of approval conditions from planning, which is the step prior to entering into a site plan agreement with the City of Toronto.
So sorry, the site plan is conditional on the minor variance.
No,
So
no,
we
no, no.
wouldn't be able to make the minor variance conditional on the site plan approval, because that's sort of circular. I want to know the mechanism to secure that you're going to get this additional parking if lease doesn't come through.
Well, you would make it a condition of the variance.
But if you get the site plan approval, then you can go ahead, presumably.
Yes?
In order to get site plan approval, they will require these variances.
Variance,
If the committee approves this with a condition requiring off-site parking, that condition has to be cleared before they can get a
Before
building permit.
exactly. Before we can enter into an agreement with the city, the parking would have to be solved, obviously.
Okay, and transportation hasn't requested any conditions from what I can see?
No.
They have. It's not very clear, but the last paragraph in their comments says, based on the foregoing, we have no objection to the above noted minor variance application on condition that in addition to the proposed 442 on-site parking spaces, a minimum of 104 parking spaces are provided and maintained off-site at premises number 590 Dixon Road to the satisfaction of the City of Toronto.
Okay, I think I'd be comfortable if just we remove 590 Dixon Road and just make it general that they get the off-site parking.
That's fair.
Okay. Okay, so if there's no
Well,
other,
well, shouldn't we put a distance limit on that off-site parking? I mean, that off-site parking shouldn't be a kilometer away.
It's a good point.
what, in the vicinity to the put it to the satisfaction of
I would
Director of
suggest
Planning?
to put it to the satisfaction of transportation services, because the other issue is that any parking provided off-site has to be surplus to that site.
Yes.
So you can't use their
Right.
required parking to accommodate this 104 parking spaces.
Okay. Okay, so is someone, good segue, is someone ready to make a motion?
I just wanted to clarify, NAV Canada is fine with this in terms of the heights and all of that. And we can't
Yes.
put conditions to that anyway, right? Because it's not part of the.
No. No, we submitted 2 of their letters from November 2019 and March 2020, where they've confirmed that they're satisfied with the building as designed because it meets Pearson Airport flight path
Okay,
regulations.
the reason I bring that up is because you're asking for a variance for the height, and given that you're
Yes.
right in line with 2 of the runaways, we just want to be clear on that.
Yep, they've okayed it.
Okay, so I'm prepared to move a motion in support of this application. I believe it does meet the required 4 tests. However, with the condition that the off-site parking be provided to the satisfaction of transportation.
Okay.
Should the first place be at that particular property where they're pursuing the renewal of the
Well,
lease?
I don't
Or
wanna-
alternatively at another location?
Or, okay, let's say
Satisfaction.
alternatively within, to the satisfaction of the transportation department, yeah.
Station services. Yeah.
Rather than adding a specific distancing factor to it.
Yeah.
Yep, that's fair.
Thank you for that motion. Seconder for Mr. Comerick's motion. Mr. Palmer, all in favor by show of hands? Unanimous approval, Mr. Dalton. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, you too.
Thank you.
Okay, our next application is item number 13. 24 COLWOOD Road. It's an application for a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There's 5 variances. And we have urban forestry requesting conditions 2 and 3. And there are 5 variances. We have before us letters of support, forestry conditions and memos, one of which is consolidated. We letter of opposition from, to maximize it here.
33 Edge Valley Drive.
Right. To talk about the mass, it's larger, significantly larger than the adjacent dwelling, impact the overall streetscape of the block. And on this application, we have one registered speaker, Andrew Borak, the owner. Andrew, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Okay. Committee members, do you feel you'd like a presentation from the owner on this property, or do you just want to ask some questions or proceed to a motion?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Kamarick, Mr. Palmer? Okay. Mr. Boric, is there anything you'd like to let us know other than what's before us?
I did include as well, there were some letters of support from the neighbors
Yes, we have those.
that would be directly impacted.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had conversations and have met with each one of my neighbors, each on either side. My neighbor in the backyard that my property directly backs onto, as well as my neighbors in front. And they've all been very supportive, very friendly, and they think that the design of the home would be very complementary to the neighborhood. So some very good positive feedback from my immediate neighbors.
Okay, that's always a good thing to do, to go talk to your neighbors and get them on side. So let's see if committee members have any questions for you, or if someone's ready to make a motion. Members? No questions? Mr. Palmer? Okay, nobody has any questions, so is someone ready to make a motion on this application? I note we have urban forestry conditions.
Mr. Chair, I find the 5 variances to be minor in nature and that the other tests under the Planning Act are met. And I therefore move for approval, subject to urban forestry conditions 2 and 3.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that motion? Mr. Kamarick, all in favor by show of hands. You have your approval unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Okay. Okay, item number 14. 26 DORLEN. The registered agent on this is Mario Piano. Mr. Piano, are you here?
I am, yes.
Welcome. Let me just introduce this. Okay, the notice. This is again a detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 6 variances. We have planning asking for a condition that in event of approval that it be built substantially in accordance with the plans dated February the 13th. I think mainly dealing with the issue about the building length. Committee members, would you like a presentation from Mr. Piano on this?
Let's see.
Is there anything, or do you have any questions if you don't need a presentation?
I'm good.
Is there anything else, sir, that you'd like to let us know other than what's before us? Because
No, I
committee
think
members don't
that's
feel
about-
it's straightforward enough, they don't need a presentation, so we'll just see, and they don't have any questions, no one has any questions? Then perhaps we can have a motion, unless there's anything you'd like to add, sir.
No, the only thing is, I didn't make it on time to file the petition of support of all the neighbors, and I did receive that. It's
Okay.
filed on the city website, but
Yes.
I'm not sure, I don't think you guys have that available to you.
Yeah, we get anything that's filed in the city website. Hold on a second. Trying to maximize your letter. Yes. As I mentioned, the planning is just asking for a condition that it be any approval be built substantially in accordance with those plans received February 13, 2020. Assume you're content
Very
with
well.
that.
Yes.
Okay. Committee members, are we ready for a motion? There it is.
Transportation.
Oh, I see.
There was a petition in support that was submitted. I'm not sure why it's not in your package. So there are signatures from 27, 24, 23, 25, and 28 DORLEN. as well as 4 Harrop Avenue.
Yeah, and there is a planning condition dated memo March 12, 2020, where they asked as a condition of approval certain conditions. Sir, did you see that letter on the file from Transportation dated March 12th?
I believe it was about the driveway. Is
Yes.
that correct? Yeah,
You have to
I
give
did
them a
see it,
site
yes.
plan drawing to identify and dimension all portions of the driveways and curb cuts that'll be closed. And there's some
Okay.
other notations that have to be on that site plan drawing. So perhaps you could,
Okay.
the committee would make any approval subject to this letter.
Very well.
There are also conditions from planning and forestry.
Yes. Yeah, planning, I just mentioned the substantially in accordance. So someone ready to make a motion?
I can give it a shot. I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
I believe the application, the variances sought are minor. I believe they meet the 4 tests. So I'd like to move approval, subject to a number of conditions. Transportation conditions as set out in the letter previously mentioned. Forestry conditions 2 and 3, and subject to the application drawings being submitted, to the application as per the drawings submitted
So being built substantially in accordance.
in accordance with.
Of course, with the planning memo. Thank you, Mr. Kamerick. Seconder for that, Mr. Kamerick's motion. Mr. Taylor, all in favor, show of hands. Thank you. Have unanimous approval. Subject to the commission.
Thank you.
Those conditions.
Thank you.
Sorry, Transportation Services, Planning and Forestry, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Our next application is item number 1570 Yorkview Drive. And on that application, we have registered as a speaker who didn't pre-register, Igor Pavlison. Mr. Pavlison,
Hello?
are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Welcome. So this is an application again, new detached dwelling with attached garage. There are 4 variances. We have Urban Forestry requesting condition 5, which I assume is a refusal. They're recommending we refuse the application. And there are 4 variances. We have the materials on file, including an arborist report, a couple of forestry memos, transportation, and opposition and support. And we all have that in our packages. We have no one else, appearing here before us with concerns, but we do have some opposition as well. So, good afternoon, sir. Would you like to give us a brief presentation on this application as what you want to do here? First of all, have you seen the file?
Pardon me?
I said you've seen the file. The neighbor at 68 looks like they have some concerns.
That is correct, yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. My name is Igor Pavlison, resident of 70 Yorkview Drive. Thank you for your consideration in regards to a number of these variances. Would you like me to give you a short summary in regards to these 4 variances?
Well, we have that before us, but perhaps you can focus. I see the neighbors complaining, but this is, I guess it's a bungalow next to you. Are there all bungalows? Is there 2 stories? I assume being, built as you propose?
It's a mixed. In the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of new development, so it's now a mix of bungalows and 2-story dwellings.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
And,
we also have your, no, we don't have, that's a different one. So if you'd like to just explain, you have the right to give us, otherwise we'll see if committee members have any questions. But committee members, would you like a short presentation from the applicant? You feel it's not necessary?
Well, if I just may add, we did a considerable consultation with the neighbors, proven by some letters of support. So in effort to make sure that there are any problems with any of the neighbors except this particular one, And based on these 7 letters of support behind us, in front of us, and the other sides of us, everybody was in favor of this development. Is found desirable and appropriate and consistent with the new home developments on our street. So I also would like to point that in terms of complaint from the neighbor on 68 Yorkview Drive, in terms of blocking the sun, we do have a few very large trees in front of our homes. They're blocking the sun anyway, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue in terms of any difference that it is now, being by building or by tree.
Okay. Okay, committee members, any further questions for the applicant, or are you ready for make a motion?
Just, yeah, I think I might know the answer to this, but variance 2 cites 2 different flat roof heights, 7.5 and 7.7. Is it either of those, or which one?
Well, one, it's the old Etobicoke bylaw, another one, it's a Toronto bylaw. So depending on recommended measuring.
Yeah, I realize that aspect, but what's confusing me, it says the new dwelling will have a height of 7.5. And then with respect to the other bylaw, it says the new dwelling will have a flat roof height of 7.7.
The way
Perhaps, Mr. Taylor, it's a question of how it's measured under the 2 different bylaws.
Oh, okay.
one is to the underside of the eaves, the other one is to the very top.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Any further questions, or someone ready to make a motion?
What is forestry recommending on this? I'm struggling with that.
Forestry is recommending refusal of the variances with option to conditional approval pending the approval of the application to the forestry to injure the tree. Main concern is protection of the roots for removal of the existing sidewalk in like a concrete walk towards the house, existing one.
So it's
So
a
it needs
city
to be
tree in the
removed.
front.
And we wanted that to remove by hand, which is perfectly fine with us. The reason we are choosing to build in this location where we've been living for 20 years is that particular tree. So we have absolutely every intent to preserve this tree. It's just wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Or are we ready for a motion?
I'm satisfied that the 4 variances are minor in nature and that the other tests under the Planning Act are met. And I would move approval subject to urban forestry condition 1 and conditions set out by transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion. Mr. Palmer, thank you. All in favor? You have your approval. Unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, next application is item number 16, 30 EDENVALE Crescent. It's an application, as many others today, to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are only 2 variances, floor space index and side exterior main wall height. And we have urban forestry requesting conditions 2 and 3. And we have before us supporting material, forestry, and a letter of support. And the registered speaker on this application, we only have one, is Mr. Glenn Rubinoff, agent. Mr. Rubinoff.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. Yes, this is an application that was before committee back in January. It was approved at that point. When we went, after the hearing, we went to close the zoning certificate, and the examiner discovered that he missed the variance for density. So the plans before you are the same plans that came before with you before in January. It's the same FSI, but it wasn't identified previously, so that's why we're back here.
Okay.
The wall, yeah, and the wall height variance, when he had to consider coming back, there was an item that he wanted to address, which was the wall height. So he's asking for an additional 1'3" for the wall height. Both immediate neighbors have re-signed letters of support based on this revised application. So I think it's to be frank, it's a very, we're coming back with pretty much the same plan. We're here because there was a variance missed the first time around, and that went through the zoning review process. So it was identified by the city. They missed that item. They caught it, and now we're just back to address that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rubinoff. Any questions for Mr. Rubinoff from committee members? Okay, and if not, is someone ready to make a motion?
Yeah, I would see this as technical in nature. We've already dealt with the essence of this proposal before. Variances are minor in nature. All the other tests under the Planning Act are met, and I move approval subject to urban forestry conditions number 2 and 3.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Someone prepared to second that motion? Mr. Kamerick, all in favor by show of hands. You have unanimous approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, our next application is item number 17, 211 ALDERBRAE Avenue. It's an application for a second-story addition above the existing dwelling and a new covered front porch. Urban Forestry is requesting condition number 1. And we have copies of the bylaws, supporting materials, and forestry memo. Registered.
Good afternoon, committee members.
Yes, is this Mr. Barrett?
Yes, it is. Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Barrett, with your permission, I'll see if committee members would like a presentation on this or if they just have some questions for you.
Yeah, great. I did actually send in the entire presentation that I would be giving. Were we doing this in person? So
Yeah.
happy to do it.
Okay, that's in your supporting materials. Thank you for doing that. Committee
pleasure.
members, would you like a presentation from Mr. Barrett, or are you content with what he's provided us in writing?
I just have a question.
Okay, question. from
Unless
Mr.
anyone else wants a presentation.
Everyone else okay? Okay, thank you. Thumbs up from Mr. Palmer.
Just around variance number 2, is that an existing condition?
Variance number 2, the gross floor area.
No, the roof eaves?
It is, I mean, if you take a look at the photo and the supporting material that I submitted, that is the north side of the home. So it is quite close to that property line as is. And we're going straight up on existing foundation.
That's
and
what
footprint.
I'm saying. So you're maintaining the existing setback line.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, or are we ready for a motion? You have Urban Forestry 1.
I've been in contact with Urban Forestry about that, and we're going to be able to work something out. Basically, there's a large city tree in the front. It will be protected and preserved. The owners have no intention of harming that tree. The plan is to rebuild a walkway and a small covered porch, but it's got to be done in such a way as to not harm that tree. So we're just waiting on a more detailed arborist report and some more material we can provide to them to ensure that they're satisfied before this moves forward. But that tree will remain.
Okay. Any further questions, or Mr. Barrett, anything else? You've given us that presentation, so let's see if there are any further questions. Mr. Palmer, Mr. Kamerick, Mr. Taylor, someone ready to make a motion?
So on that note, I would like to, I believe the variances are minor and the application meets the 4 test. And on that basis, I'd like to move approval with the condition of forestry, condition number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara. Seconder for that motion.
There's a second.
Mr. Palmer, thank you. All in favor? Show of hands. Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Barrett.
very much.
Okay, we'll see
Thank
you
you. Take care.
again. Okay, so items 18 and 19 we're going to hear together. That's 50 Treeview Drive Parts 1 and Part 2, actually Part 2, because item 18 and Part 1 is item 19. The applicant for this application is TJ Secura.
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Pronouncing them, okay. Welcome. So
Thank you.
I'm just remembering from my review of this application, these were previously before the committee and approved back in January.
February 2020.
30th. January 30th?
February 13th.
Okay, February 13th.
Yes.
And it looks like all that happened is something was missed. Can you please explain what happened? So all these variances have been approved, but for one. Is that correct? Or
That's correct. In the notice of public hearing and the notice of the decision that went out for the February 2020 hearing, one side yard setback for each part was not indicated on the notice of public hearing and on the notice of decision. Therefore, when the applicant applied for a building permit, the zoning examiner identified that that variance had not been granted. It was a clerical typo. It was an oversight, and so the only remedy was to come back to the Committee of Adjustment. The plans are identical to the plans you reviewed in February of 2020, and nothing has changed. So I just want to make 2 points with regards to the current application. Number one, I did submit a cover letter explaining all of this in writing, and we are affirming our request that all the application fees be returned, as this was a clerical error by the City of Toronto and had nothing to do with the applicant or the owner's submission. As well, the Urban Forestry has requested denial of this application due to an introduction of a second driveway. That is part of the consent application, which is already approved, and no appeals have been submitted. And the condition that they requested is also imposed on the consent application that was approved in 2020. So we are requesting the committee approve this application with no conditions and a refund of the application fee to the applicant.
okay, sir, I'm just to check with Secretary Treasurer in terms of requesting a fee reduction or fee return, they have to make a separate request in writing. We don't deal with that today, or?
That's been forwarded to Michael Mizzi and he has approved it. So that's not for your.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Today.
Did you hear that?
Yes, sir.
Sharon?
Thank you. I had
It's
not
been
been made aware of that, so I am aware of it now that the fee will be returned. Thank you.
That's very good. Okay, so it's clear. So it's sometimes if they say, well, it's not really a staff error, it's you should have caught it or whatever. So they're giving your feedback. That's wonderful. So in terms of the additional variance, let's see if committee members have any questions or if we're ready for a motion. And I guess you do not want the imposition of urban forestry. And I guess the matter of the feedback, that'll be dealt with at a higher level than us. But you've heard that from staff. It's part of the minutes.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, and it looks like, okay, my mention of January, looks like this was here, but it had to get deferred because your plans were not in metric.
No, that's the next step.
Oh, that's the next one. Okay, sorry.
That's the last.
There was no deferral on this one in February.
Okay, you had your approval, right, correct. And it was a staff error missing that one variance. And I guess that one variance, committee members have to find that acceptable, which is from, is it 0.83 to 0.93 or something? Or
Well,
no, again,
No,
I'm making
it's a side yard setback on one side of
Okay.
one lot. It's from 1.2 to 0.9. And on one side of the other lot, it's from 1.2 to 0.6.
Okay, my mistake again, Mr. Secure. I'm looking again at item number 20. I'm ahead of myself.
I have a,
Okay.
okay, I just have
That's
one,
okay.
one question related
does
to
Neil.
those side yard setbacks, because it's not clear to me which is part 1 and which is part 2. So the 0.6 setback is that between the your two parcels, or is that between you and another property?
That's correct. The 0.6 meter setback is the north side of part 2, which is the southern lot, and it is the part between the two new lots.
Between the two lots, between the two
New
lots. Okay, that
New
was,
lots.
that's what I wanted to clarify. And
Yes.
I'm okay with that. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Palmer had a question?
Mr. Palmer here. Yeah, the previous approval was subject to a few conditions. One of them was the consent conditions, it looks like. And the other was, it looks like 3 conditions by transportation, engineering, and construction. Are we okay to impose those conditions on this approval as well?
I
Any
have no
objection
objection
to
to those. I have no objection to those conditions, Mr. Chair, because the urban forestry condition was reflected in the consent condition, and this minor variance would refer back to that, so that's fine.
Okay, the other set of conditions had to do with engineering and construction services.
No, those have not been requested in this case.
Oh, okay.
Because the previous decision is still valid. It is required, so they will have to fulfill those conditions in order to get a building permit.
Okay, so they have to, in order to get a permit, they have to fulfill conditions of both approvals, the previous one and this one, as well as the consent.
Correct.
Okay.
So we don't
So
need,
you can have comfort approving this application subject to the condition that it meet all the conditions of the consent application already approved. And that would cover every condition that you imposed on the last approval.
okay. What forestry conditions were imposed on the previous approval?
If there are no street trees, a cash in lieu payment would be required.
That was the only condition?
That was the only urban forestry condition. And as you may or may not see on the plans, there is one street tree in front of one of the new lots, and it is intended to be preserved. So there would be a cash payment for the other lot.
For the other one?
Yes.
So that would require forestry condition 1, and then the other one, okay.
That forestry condition is already imposed on the consent application.
It is, for the existing?
It's already there, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there private trees in the rear?
I believe there are a small couple of private trees, and there should be no issues with them.
Is this forestry asking?
There was one removed in the past.
Because under this application, I have a note that forestry is requesting condition 3, which would be the preservation of private trees, right? No, that's the cash in lieu. I'm sorry. It's wrong.
Yes, condition 3 is cash if there's no street trees, yes.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Someone ready to make a motion then?
I think ostensibly we're dealing with an oversight matter here. The overall merits of the proposal were dealt with 3 months ago by this group, this committee. I find what's being requested is minor in nature. All of the Planning Act tests are met, and I recommend approval unconditionally.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion.
Can I do a friendly amendment? Just impose forestry condition 3 on the lot that does not have the existing tree.
Sure, my anticipation was that was redundant, but I'll live with that.
Okay.
Okay.
I believe that's part 1. Well, which part has the existing tree? If part 2 has it, then it's on part 1.
Part 2 has the existing tree, part 1 does not have a street tree in front of it. Again, that condition's already there.
Sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Secura, we're in a motion right now.
So, sorry, it's for item 19 then.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor? The motion with the friendly amendment. You have unanimous approval, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 20, 55 MULOCK Avenue. This is the one that caused me, I was confusing with the last one. So this is an application, it was before the committee in January 30th. It looks like it was deferred in order to convert the plans to metric, and then COVID hit. So it looks like it's now built, and now it's to maintain the two-story rear addition. I guess with COVID, you couldn't wait. So it looks like there are two variances, FSI from 0.83 to 0.93, and a depth from 17 to 18.91. And it doesn't look like there's any other conditions.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, this application is here because they did receive an order to comply.
I see. Okay.
So they completed construction before they even applied.
Oh, before they applied, not since January when they
Yeah.
came with metric plans. Is that correct? I thought maybe they just went ahead because of COVID and because they couldn't get back on an agenda. So we have a staff memo here dated January, was before the last hearing. Yeah, that was about the deferral. Okay. That's redundant at this point. Okay, committee members, any questions for the applicant? The applicant is Ms. Bonfin. Excuse Bonfin, are you with us?
Yes,
Okay, welcome.
yes, I am.
Would you like a presentation
you.
from the applicant? No? The committee members may just have some questions for you. We don't need a proposal. So there's two variances, and it is built.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm sorry. At the time of the, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. The application was a request to keep the extension made at the back of the house.
Mm-hmm.
First, I would like to apologize for having had that work done without a permit. At the time, I didn't know because the guy who was doing it, he said it was minor and didn't need the permit.
Interesting.
And I hope I knew better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The addition was done to accommodate the laundry machine on the floor on the same level, side by side, before I had them like on top of the other, and it was hard for me to reach. And but there was no room to open the door.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you went ahead and you built this extension. It's resulting in the purpose of this committee is to look at it as if it wasn't yet built and to see if the two variants you're requesting is reasonable enough that they would have approved it back before it was built. So they don't have an inference against you or in your favor the fact that it's already built. So let's see if committee members have any questions for you. And otherwise, we'll bring it in for a decision. Any questions?
Nope.
No? Okay, is someone ready to make a motion on this application? I don't believe there are any conditions being requested by city staff.
I believe the variances requested are minor. I believe it's appropriate for the area and meets the 4 tests, and I would therefore move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Kamarick. Seconder for that motion.
Thank you so
Mr.
much.
Taylor.
I appreciate it.
Okay, hold on. Matter is approved unanimously. You have a unanimous approval. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I
Okay, have a good
appreciate
day.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to me.
Thank
Because
you.
it's been the last 4 years, it's been very difficult.
Okay.
Okay,
over now.
Mr. Chair, we
That's all
have a
good.
number of files to be closed. We can
Yes.
make one motion on them.
Okay.
But because Mr. Komoric has a conflict, I'd ask that the other members move in second. So we
Okay.
have an application for 1926 Lakeshore Boulevard West, 181 Hallmark Avenue, 942 The Queensway, 9 St. Emilion Way, 3 Shade Tree Crescent, 28A 3rd Street, 312 Burnhamthorpe Road, 16 Babby Point Road, and 741 The Queensway.
Okay, I'll move that all these files be closed. I see some of them date back to 2017. Is that what the number is, the 17
Yes.
EYK? So I guess you're just cleaning up files and closing things that haven't moved forward, and perhaps some people have withdrawn some of the newer ones for whatever reason. So I'll move those files all be closed. Mr. Taylor, all in favor? Mr. Palmer, okay,
Thank you.
all those files are closed. And it is now 2:05, and we stand adjourned. See you next time, Neil. Hi, Neil.
Yeah, good work, everyone. Pretty easy from my end.
Same to you.
I had
Awesome.
two computers in front of me.
Nice
so-
seeing you, Neil.
Yeah.
Yeah, good seeing you guys. I have no pants on.